Hello, everyone.
What's happening?
What's up, pulse?
I'm tired.
Welcome to Bass Now Radio. I'm Andrew.
A little double recording that. I'm Lewis.
That's tired.
Yes.
Yes, we were recording this episode literally seconds after recording our preview for Saginaw Bay.
And it's to be used at a later date.
I'm still watching. Yeah, we don't know when
We're
this
letting
is coming
you know
out.
we are so transparent with y'all.
Yeah,
But it's gonna be good.
I'm still watching the Bruins play the Islanders.
Are they playing?
When this comes out, there's a chance that the Islanders could be the Stanley Cup playoff winners. And I don't know how he missed that. That was tragic. It's probably not going to be the Bruins. Could be the Islanders. Could be someone else. Well,
Could be.
this is an entertaining thing. All right, you know what? Here's my prediction. Stanley Cup winners based on what I know right now. I think that the Montreal Canadiens are going to win the Stanley Cup.
I think that whoever wins the Stanley Cup is gonna win the Stanley Cup.
Facts. This fantastic
I know nothing about
production that is so on top of things, that is well produced, is brought to you by Deep Ocean Apparel.
as well as Biz Bates.
If you haven't checked out both these companies, fantastic companies.
Please do.
Both are small local companies.
Yeah.
Biz Bates is located here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Deep Apparel.
Small and growing local companies.
Small and growing local companies. Deep Apparel is located up in Rhode Island, my home state. Check them out. Shopdeep.com. You can use the code Sunrise20 at checkout. Get 20% off. It's the summer. You definitely need some clothing to protect you from the summer UV rays. And Deep Apparel is where you're going to get it.
Yes. And you're going to get your baits to go fishing in the summer at bizbaits.com. And you can use the code BASSNOW there, capital B, capital N. Check out the Blindside football jig. Check out the Mag Dizzy Diamond.
Yeah, especially in the summer, you're going to be ledge
Do
fishing.
some dragging.
Yes,
Do some dragging.
It's just, that is what you want to be using.
And if you don't want to do that, buy you some cutter craws and flip around, or some Senkos and just do that.
Yes. Just do that.
Yes.
So,
What are we talking about today?
On today's episode, we are going to be talking about practicing for
We talking about
tournaments.
practice.
Practice.
We ain't talking about a game. We talking about practice.
Practice, the most important part of
I
the
feel like
game.
that's such an overused
Apparently, the
quote.
Bruins didn't practice enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that is a quote that is way overused, but I just used it. So
Good job.
thank you.
Glad that we can stay cliche here at Bass Now Radio.
Oh, we do a good job of that.
Let's talk about practice. Just dive right in. What do you think is the most important thing a college angler should do in practice?
Or any angler for that
Or
matter.
any angler, yes.
I'm going to break this down from a fundamental standpoint. Some of you will get that reference. Let's break this down and treat it for... We'll talk about a couple different things. Because there's multiple different tournaments. Obviously, we're college fishing podcast. We're going to focus on that. I'm going to assume that most college anglers that are taking, probably a week off to go and fish these tournaments, practice for these tournaments, you're getting 3 days, 3 solid days of practice. So that's something to start with. So let's base it off of that. Do you concur?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about what I was thinking. That's
3
why I say
solid days.
college English. So,
Yeah, you did say that.
You know?
For me, I practice based upon what kind of tournament I think it is. I don't have any set rules. That could be an issue. It could be something I need to fix, but that's my personal school of thought. But regardless of that, before we get into X's and O's, you asked me what the most important thing is.
Yes, what do you think the most important thing is?
People don't want to hear this. People are going to get upset with me for this.
It'll be really funny if you say the same thing that I'm thinking. So
I've been bit by this bug. You've been bit by this bug.
I think you and I are thinking about the same thing.
I think a lot of people have been bit by this bug. And it's being honest with yourself. I think the biggest key
Okay, never mind.
to practice is a mindset, and it's being honest with yourself.
You want to go a little
Would you like
bit
me
in
to
depth with
elaborate
that?
on that?
Yeah, please elaborate on that.
Don't go into the tournament saying, I had one day in practice where I caught this much weight. I'm going to catch this much weight in the tournament. It doesn't work like that. Ever.
Except for maybe St. Lawrence.
Ever. Be honest with yourself. What I mean by that is what I said. I mean, like, if you've caught a couple 2.5 pounders, don't just assume you can catch 12 pounds a day doing what you did in practice. Tournament's always going to change. Everything's going to change. You kind of have to adjust with the conditions, and you have to not be let down if in the first hour you don't have, nice job, Bruins, you don't have what you thought you could catch in a day. I think that's the biggest key. Obviously, I'm kind of getting into the tournament at that point, but be honest with yourself. Be honest with what you're on. If you had a practice where you had 3 bites a day and they were all good ones, you can say, okay, I'm on a good bite, but that's only 3 bites a day. I need to get on something, figure something else out. If you had 2 days where you caught just good ones, you need to say that instead of just trying to expand on what you had. A lot of people like to, once they kind of figure a little something out one day of practice, let's say the first day of practice you figure something out, they spend the rest of practice trying to expand on that and do more of that and find more areas like that. Try and get a B and a C plan going.
Yeah.
Just try. I think that's a big, huge key. What's your biggest key? I have a lot of
My biggest
more
key, and it's something that's burned me because, for those of you who don't know, I didn't really tournament fish until I came to college. And probably the single thing that's burned me most in practice is listening to other people. Listening to the dock chatter, the chatter in bait stores, the chatter on our meeting night.
Yep.
The chatter just with guys on the team.
Yep, that's a really good one.
I have been 100% guilty of being like, well, I am not catching them right now.
It's a good one.
And someone says they're catching them this way. And then I go and practice that way for a day, essentially blow a day, doing something that...
Chasing somebody else's bite.
Chasing someone else's bite. Most recently, I did it at Cumberland. And it's something I'm kicking myself for because I actually turned out to have found the location of where there were fish and didn't go and fish it because of dock chatter and people being like, well, I'm catching them this way in this area.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I haven't found that yet, really. So
that's a good one.
You know, that's how it goes. I mean, I feel like everyone does it to some extent. If you hear someone talking, unless you're really, really on them, you're probably going to take note and be like, well, okay, well, I haven't tried that yet. So, I think that's the biggest thing.
Well, here's something I can ask. I have a good follow-up question for that.
Yes, yeah.
If this sneeze ever comes. Bless me. Thank me.
Thank you.
Those 2 things we just talked about, our 2 biggest keys, were 2 big do nots.
Do nots.
What's a do for you?
Do?
Yeah.
I think to kind of go along with something you were saying, I think that you should go and find or try and find multiple patterns.
Okay.
I think you should practice like one pattern is going to fail. That's something that I've been trying to do more in my practicing is be a little bit more open to changing it up. And something may be getting me a bite, but what if it stops getting me a bite? What do I go to next? I also think that it's really important to do research.
Okay.
I think the guys that go old school here, I think the guys that do well tend to put in more time to do research.
Okay.
I'm not saying go and take a guide out.
Right.
Or anything like that, or talk to a bunch of locals. I'm talking old school, read the books, read the forums, even social media.
Yep. Social media is a big
There
one.
are people posting on the lake all the time about stuff they're doing before the tournament. Once the tournament comes, then stuff can get a little fishy, obviously, in social media. But, I think that's important too.
That's good. I like that. I like that. I'm going to say a do for practice. Something everyone should do is use practice to find on any given lake in the country, at any given time, you can usually find fish that you know how to catch. What I mean by that is fish you're comfortable fishing for, that bite on a pattern or a technique you're comfortable fishing.
Yes.
Find that, regardless of what they should be doing or how everyone else is quote unquote catching them. I've gotten bit so many times by trying to go and fish in a way that I'm not comfortable fishing. I think the huge key is finding your own bite and fishing it well, because a lot of times that's going to pay off a lot better than not. That being said, you're not going to win every tournament doing that, but you're going to do well. And when a tournament comes that suits your comfortability well, you got a really good shot at winning it.
Yeah. Mastering a couple techniques instead of being
not necessarily that. Not necessarily that. All I'm saying is don't you practice in tournament, figure out how to catch your fish. Your time a month before the tournament, or, when you're fun fishing, that's your time to work on, hey, I don't throw a crankbait a lot. I'm going to learn how to throw a crankbait really well. Hey, I'm not really good with finesse techniques. Let me try and work on my finesse techniques. Your fun fishing time is your time to work on that. Don't show up at the St. Lawrence River and because it's a smallmouth fishery that's known for drop shots and Ned rigs to say, hey, I'm going to go and do this if you like catching them, I don't know, on a spinnerbait.
Yeah.
Or, whatever the case may be. Usually, most of us have a couple of different things we're really comfortable doing. Figure out how to catch them doing one of those things. I can't tell you how many different tournaments, and you may go ahead and look at recent pro tournaments, Elite Series tournaments, classics, whatever, where a guy is catching him doing something he's not supposed to be doing given that lake that time of the year.
Yeah.
And it's probably because it's something he's really good at doing. And it works out for him on that body of water because not a lot of people there might even do it. Sometimes you have an advantage in that aspect. I look at I remember a couple St. Lawrence tournaments where everybody's drop shotting. The whole tournament's drop shotting. And Keith Combs makes a top 10 on a 6XD.
Yeah.
Cranking friggin' 25 foot or whatever, smallmouth.
Yeah.
You don't need to go and do what the grain's doing or what they should be doing. Catch them doing your thing.
Yeah.
You might not win. Like I said, you might not win every tournament, but you can dang do well. I think Keith, good example, I guess I pulled out of my ass there. Keith Combs won an Angler Lear championship on Mille Lacs. Everyone's drop shotting and Ned rigging. He was dragging or stroking a 3/4 ounce football jig on rock piles. Smallmouth. Nobody would have thought to do that. So do what you're comfortable doing in practice.
Yeah.
In practice. I don't think that, a lot of people say practice is a good time to work on new techniques. I don't think so. I think it's a good time to find areas that suit your style the best.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is important, and we might actually differ on this, so could be good. In a recent episode of Luke Duncan's podcast, he had John Cox on, and Cox was talking about how he's been grinding all these tournament trails, and he had a practice where he wasn't. I think it was Pickwick. He wasn't finding them, and he took a half day on practice, and kind of reset mentally. Slept in, didn't go crazy, getting up 6 a.m. fishing till 6 p.m. And Luke Duncan actually brought up Jack Dice, who's a college guy who won Cumberland. And I guess Jack Dice at some point had posted
Smith,
because he went from Cumberland to the BFL on Potomac, I think it was, or James.
Nope, Kerr.
Or Kerr. Yeah, Kerr. Sorry. And then he went to Smith, and he was saying that the lack of sleep contributed to his lack of success at Smith. And I don't know. I think that's a big factor.
I agree.
Not to burn yourself out in practice.
I agree. I definitely agree. You just gotta manage your time well. I mean, I'm a workhorse guy where when it comes to tournament, I'm going to be there dawn to dusk if I can. You know, if school or whatever else allows me, I'm going to fish from, you know, when I go to these tournaments, it's let's go to work. But it's let's go to work with sleep very much in mind. You know, as well as all the guys that travel with me know, I pull back up and plug the boat in and crawl in bed and go to bed.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it goes. So I do agree. I think that's a big part of it. For any tournament is making sure you're in the right mental space, you know, mental practice just as much as the actual practicing on the lake.
Yeah.
Here's a wise one.
Wise.
It's from an old wise friend of mine, Trevor Topkin. Very old, very wise. By old, he's barely a year older than me, and he's
younger than
not very wise. But Trevor told me something a long time ago. He'd been fishing tournaments longer than I had. And it was a great piece of information that has helped me out tremendously. And it can be taken to extremes, which isn't a good idea. But I guess this isn't really practice advice, but
That's right.
Screw it.
Good advice. It's advice.
Practice during the tournament. Do not be afraid. If shit hits the fan, you ain't got nothing going on.
Why not
Get
try
to practicing
something else?
again.
Yeah.
And this kind of ties in with something I heard from Brian Thrift, where he says if he's struggling and practice did not pan out, or whatever he was on in practice is gone, he'll run 20 miles down the lake and just put the trolling motor down. Just act like it's new lake. I can't tell you how important that is and how many times it's helped me. Obviously, this is more tournament advice, but it kind of goes along with practice.
Yeah. It's good practice.
Get to fishing.
Practice in the statement.
Yeah. Get to fishing when shit hits the fan.
I like that. I like that.
That's a big tip I like.
Now, I'll ask a question now. Mm-hmm. I always have heard that threes is a pattern. Catch 3 fish doing the same thing in 3 different areas. Then that's a pattern. What do you consider a tournament pattern?
I'm not a big pattern guy.
You're more of a just fish guy.
Here's what I think. I think when pattern this, and people aren't going to like this. A lot of people are going to disagree with this, and that's fine. But it's kind of the truth. Pattern fishing was, quote unquote, invented by one Roland Martin. That's why he dominated the sport in the 70s. Since then, our lakes have gotten fished. People have learned how to fish patterns. People have learned the shady side of that, whatever. People break it down to the green leaves on the friggin' bank, whatever. And I'm talking about a pattern in which you say, like, I found a pattern I can run on the whole lake. That just doesn't happen. It does, but it's so much more rare now than it used to be. So I try not to focus on that. I try to focus more so on areas where do I think the best group of big fish is, or just group of fish, depending on if I'm trying to win the tournament, which, you should try and win every tournament. But I focus more so on areas than a strict pattern. Now, if in that area I do notice something and I'm like, hey, I was planning on going up the lake in a different area tomorrow, I'm like, let me try that out. I will, but I'm not going to spend, like, if I figure, let's say they're on rock piles and 15 feet biting a crankbait really good on the lower end of a lake, and the next day I'm going to go practice the upper end of a lake, and I go to the upper end, I'm not going to spend that day looking for rock piles in 20 feet. Because on the upper end, many of you may know, a lot of lakes fish very differently in 3-mile stretches.
Yeah.
There could be 10 different lakes on a lake, if that makes any sense.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So I try not to focus so much on that. Maybe inside of an area, yes, you can pattern fish, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just good to have a general idea of what fish are doing. So, like, people can find a shad spawn in practice and say, I'm running a shad spawn pattern, which, like, sure, yeah, yes, you're running a shad spawn pattern, but
what if the shad don't spawn?
There's going to be a key area of bank where those shad are spawning. It's not like they're going to be spawning everywhere on every point,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just kind of try and figure it out. I try and figure it out more so in the tournament. I try more so to figure out an area where I can catch big fish. And in the tournament, if I figure something out that I can run with, I will. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't put any hard rules to anything in practice.
So one of your big advices would be sometimes it's good to break the rules.
Yeah.
Don't put rules on it at all.
The fish don't read the rule book. That's my best advice in fishing.
I like that. Fish don't read the rule.
They don't read the rule book.
I like that. But yeah, I agree with what you were saying about sticking with a technique that you are comfortable with.
Yeah.
I hear that from a lot of pros, honestly, where usually that's some of the advice that they give, whether it be like Bass University or just like an interview they're doing.
You look at a guy like Denny Brower. He made his living on a black and blue jig.
Yeah.
For 20 years.
I mean, you do what you're comfortable with. And I mean, sometimes it doesn't pay out, but if you find something, then you're going to know exactly what to do because it's a technique.
It's your deal.
That you're confident in. Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. I had something else on the tip of my tongue. Very much so.
Does weather affect your
time of year affects my practice?
Oh, similar question.
Time of year very much affects my practice. If it's a, summertime tournament down south, I'm going to spend a majority or anywhere really. If it's a summertime tournament or a winter, some time of the year where it's stable. The weather isn't changing. The fish aren't moving. The fish are tending to stay. Usually that's winter or summer. Mm-hmm. In the fall or in the spring, fish move a lot. I tend to try, even in the fall, this is kind of it's not a secret, but it's something about the fall as well that I've noticed is a lot easier, at least for me. What?
Painful to watch. I'm done watching.
Oh, I'm sorry. I try, if the fish are in the summer or winter, if they're stable, sticking around, or even in the fall, like I said, I tend to spend most of my practice looking for the fish. You can usually figure out how to catch them, either whether that's graphing or power fishing really fast. Not really. Usually it's some kind of graphing in the winter or the summer or even the fall. So I tend to approach those tournaments that way. That being said, in the summer, you can... This is what I'm talking about. We're different times of the year. In the summer, you can usually pull up on an area where you see fish. If it's not like a single fish in a brush pile, or if it's a brush pile that you're not sure if there's fish in, something like that. If it's a school of fish or a group of fish or a good grass patch or
a gaggle.
Yeah. If you're fishing for, like, if you're looking around for them in the summertime, you can usually pull up and try and pluck one. Whereas in the fall and even sometimes the winter, when it's a much tougher bite, I'm much more hesitant to pull on a fish. Summertime, if it's going to be, it's going to be a good tournament, you kind of got to figure out what the heck kind of fish you're on. Are you on 4-pound class fish? Or are you on pound and halfers?
Yeah.
In the fall and the winter, you don't always need to do that because sometimes 5 bites will do it for you, especially the fall, especially. Now the springtime is different in that I just kind of try and figure out, I just pick an area of the lake and try and figure out what generally they're doing in that area of the lake. And if I like that and I feel confident about that, I'm going to expand on that area. Whereas if I don't like that, I'm going to go try and figure out a different area of the lake that I like what they're doing a little bit more. Whether I like to fish pre-spawn or I think there's a good bedding bite, something like that. Another thing is bedding tournaments. I think my best advice for practicing for a bedding tournament is do your absolute best. I know it's hard to get away from people. Your fish will get plucked every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Bite you.
Bite you right in the butt.
Yeah. If you're ever planning, it's a springtime tournament, you're ever planning on basing everything you catch off the bed,
bad idea.
Good luck. Good luck. People are too good these days.
So yeah, that kind of tied into what I was about to say with the
weather.
Do you because generally I look at the weather for the tournament and I practice based on what I see coming, not necessarily what's happening now. That being, your wind forecast, your rain forecast, sunny, cold front, warm front, what do you get coming in? Mm-hmm. Because, as everyone knows, bass doesn't take much to change what they are hitting. Mm-hmm. That kind of goes along, I guess, with the adaptability and the being willing to practice during a tournament, which we were talking about earlier. But yeah, I mean, I tend to practice based around that, and I'll look at it, and I'll be like, well, it's going to potentially do this, so we might want to look in this area.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I think both schools of thought here can bite you, and both can be rewarding. Mine, personally, is try and figure out where they're at now. Because hopefully you can dial in where they're going to go as the tournament progresses. Might be a little tougher. You have to be very willing to adapt, which I try to be. I think we all try to be. No, some of us are probably just like, I'm going to catch them this way. I ain't going to catch them. But I try and find the fish in practice. Figure something out, the better quality fish.
Yeah.
And figure out what the changing weather will do to them, if it's changing. And if it's changing so much so that I've completely lost them or they completely shut down, that's when I'll employ that Brian Thrift tactic and say, screw it, I'm going to go fishing somewhere else.
Yeah. So, anyways.
Is that all you got? You have more for me?
I mean,
how do you feel about pre-practice?
Don't get me wrong, it can be helpful. I think the pre-practice that can be the most helpful is probably the biggest gray area practice, and that being talking to locals and doing trips and stuff like that. Like, something's on the schedule, go find out a little bit about it. I think that can be helpful. I think if you're practicing, 3 months out or 2 months
that's
out.
what I'm talking about. That's what I'm referring to.
I don't think that's necessarily the most helpful. I mean, I think we saw that at Hartwell.
I like it.
Because we pre-practiced there.
Same.
About a month before, right? About a month and a half before. And, yeah, we got some stuff out of it. But the fishing also changed a lot between when we were there for pre-practice and when we were actually fishing.
It worked out for me, personally.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I think I did a good job of in pre-practice doing what you're supposed to do in pre-practice, which is cover water.
Yeah.
Look around, drive around, graph around. Look at the lake. Say, okay, this area of the lake has this kind of bank. This area of the lake has this kind of bank. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're not good at shutting it out, which I cannot be at times, shutting out history and, putting things behind me, don't pre-practice. But if you feel like you gained something from going to the lake and checking it out a month prior, do it. Basically, I think my advice on pre-practicing is do it, see how you feel, see how it works out.
I also think
if it's good, if it's not.
When your tournament is. I think if it's a winter to spring tournament, I don't think it's as useful as a summer to fall tournament.
Agreed.
Where you can pre-practice and graph. And the graphing is going to help you in the summer and the fall.
Yeah.
I mean, help you in the winter and the spring too, but also stuff's changing a lot during those times of year. So
yeah, I mean, I think a wintertime tournament, it could definitely help. Spring, pre-practicing going to help unless you pre-practice the previous spring, which you're never going to have your schedule for.
Yeah.
So because the biggest thing is in the springtime, fish come up and do things in areas that they do not do things in the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it can help you because you get an idea, maybe you find in practice they're spawning on rock banks, and from your pre-practice, 3 other good rock banks. That's how it can help you. But I agree. Like I said, I think the best thing with pre-practice is do it. If it helps you, do it more. If it doesn't, don't. Simple as that.
So, yeah, I know it's, practice is definitely an important part of tournament fishing. It's important to figure out the best way to go about doing it. Mm-hmm. And obviously, what we're saying can take with a grain of salt.
Yep.
Could be
Please
completely
do.
wrong. Could be completely right.
It's just how we do things.
Yeah, it's how we do things. It's how we've figured out things work the best for us.
Yep.
And something else might work for you. You know, you guys, you might be really good at listening to doc talk and be able to discern
Most aren't.
most of it. But
Most
you know,
aren't.
Most aren't.
Don't
But
think you are.
you're ruining my point.
No. The doc talk is bad. The doc talk is bad.
All right, fine. Maybe pre-practicing works well for you during the spring. Like, I don't know.
No, I don't know who else, but yeah. This is where my me comes in.
Yeah.
Comment what works for you. Did we miss anything?
Yeah.
Maybe
Like,
so.
We might have.
Maybe so.
I mean, we're only human.
We are only human.
And on that note,
We need to go to bed.
you need to go to bed.
I need to go to bed.
I need to make dinner
You need to make dinner.
and continue to pack for Saginaw Bay.
I'm skipping dinner. I'm eating sleep for dinner.
You didn't sleep for dinner? That's nice. That's nice. It's good. Good to hear from you. We hope all of you guys are eating something this weekend.
Yes, and we hope you practice well for your next tournament.
And we hope you catch them this weekend too.
Yes.
Tight lines.
Peace out.
See you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.